So, good evening, and welcome to our session this evening on protecting your peace. We want to speak to young ladies about mental health and about being kind to your mind. So, I have with me this evening a panel, and I would like for everyone to introduce themselves. But first, let me go. I'm Miss Jones, and I am a social worker at Orange High School. Orange High School has 10th through 12th graders, and I've been here for quite a few years. I want to say about 10 years now at Orange High School. So if I'm going to have the panel, and we can start with you, Miss Thomas, please.
Hi there, I'm Miss Thomas. I'm the school counselor at Lincoln Avenue School, where we have kindergarten to seventh grade.
Awesome. Miss Hostet?
Good evening, everyone. I am Ms. Halstead. I am the principal of Orange Preparatory Academy, where we service students in grades 8 and 9 here in Orange Township.
Thank you. And Miss Barry?
Good evening, everyone. My name is Miss Berry. I am the school social worker for Orange Preparatory Academy. We service 8th and ninth grade, and I've been here only at this school for 15 years. So welcome.
All right, thank you guys. So our goal this evening is to really have a conversation, just a conversation about mental health and how we are impacted as young women. Everybody on this panel has at one point been a teen, a girl, a young woman. We're still young women, mind you. Um, we really want to be able to give you guys information that can help you navigate some of the things that you may be challenged with right now. Okay, so I'm just going to share a brief video that we want you guys to take a look at. So again,
Depression, and anxiety, and also just feeling like I'm not good enough, feeling like people aren't going to accept me for what I am.
Sadness, stress, depression, anger.
Being anxious, anxiety, fear, anger, and frustration.
Anxiety and embarrassment are the top of the list of very intense emotions that I deal with.
Well, I had anger and heartbreak were the main ones.
Being insecure about myself, like the way I look and like my body size.
Like I usually just like keep to myself, kind of. I'm not really like joking around or anything like that.
I feel sick to my stomach and as if nothing can go right.
I feel like just like alone, and I feel like nobody can understand what I'm going through.
It just kind of feels like I'm like this twig, that's a walking twig that just goes anywhere and everywhere.
It's just like emptiness, like a gap, like kind of just like is gone away from my body or so.
You just want to scream, and it's like your life is all one big puzzle.
I get shaky and my stomach gets sick and my mind is jumping to the worst case scenarios and it's all over the place, jumping to conclusions.
My mind kind of like clamps together in a way, and I can't like pick out each and every thought that I can because it just swirls around and I can't like grab it and trying to work through it.
My heart is racing. I can't speak really clearly. I'm like kind of sweaty and just kind of not looking too great.
I like just get really paranoid and don't know what to do.
Sometimes it's like I get like this knot in my throat because I know that what I feeling, I can't express it or you can't say it.
I want to punch everything around me. Like I want to punch a wall, a bed, and
when I take pictures of myself, I kind of use a black and white filter to tell me that everything will look the same and nothing will change.
Take some deep breaths and listen to music, and talking to someone about it usually helps.
I listen to music, often music that either has to do with the things that I'm feeling or music that will make me feel the opposite of what I'm feeling. And I tell myself that whatever I'm feeling or going through, it's all going to get better and that it will end eventually.
I try to just think positive, have positive thoughts, and say I can get through it. Or I just try to just breathe and just relax.
I usually write a poem, or I'll try to figure out some kind of jazz chords to play on my piano to mellow my mood a little bit. So
I try to remind myself that I'm not the only one who feels this way. I try to cool myself down to make everything go away.
Okay, so before we talk a little bit about the video that we saw, I just want to give a little sense of mental health. I want us to kind of have the same working definition. So the definition that I have for mental health is mental health includes our emotional, psychological, and social well-being. It affects how we think, feel, and act. It also helps determine how we handle stress, relate to others, and make choices. So mental health has a wide range, and we really deal with our mental health at every stage of life. It's in our childhood through adulthood, and we all have a level of mental health, and it can range from us being super healthy to perhaps we're having challenges. We really want to talk about some of the challenges today, and we want to normalize some of the feelings of mental health. So the first question that I have for our panel this afternoon, is what are your thoughts about the video that we just watched? Are you hearing similar things in the work that you're doing?
So
I don't know if you call on you or you want to call out.
Yeah, so what I'm hearing from the video is a lot of common words, a lot of common language that's used among teens and young adults. When I heard the person saying that they feel like they're not enough, I kind of just went right back to when I was that age, in middle school, and just always feeling insecure and unsure, and really having to work through that on my own because there were no mental health professionals, that I knew of. And so I think the teens and the young adults now have an advantage because there's so many avenues where they can express themselves, and also so many people that they can speak with about what they're actually going through.
Okay, thank you.
And also to follow what Ms. Berry was saying, especially with the students that we saw in the video, it's right on par for for their psychosocial development to be at that age, to have identity versus confusion. They're trying to figure out who they are as an individual and how is it that they fit in to their community and to their friend groups, even into their families. And a lot of that navigation, that natural growing up of a navigation, it's really hard. It's really hard for them emotionally because they really don't know which way is up or down.
Good point.
I agree. I particularly agree with what Ms. Berry shared in terms of what life was like for us as adolescents. We grew up in a time where I remember being in middle school, we had a guidance counselor, but I don't remember there ever being a social worker. When we heard the word social worker, we automatically thought about diapers and child care services and stuff like that. But I don't remember there being a time where any of my friends went for counseling or anything like that. But I do remember times of being depressed, lonely, isolated. And I remember being a support system for my girlfriends, family members being a support system for me. But we also didn't have social media throwing things at us. We cared about our bodies and what we looked like, and we looked at our bodies and we said, like it is for our girls now. And so for us, there was not a sense sense of that we had to be absolutely perfect as social media presents life to be for young ladies.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah, definitely.
Mm.
So that
Social media plays a big part.
That plays a really big part. So you guys are jumping ahead. You guys are jumping ahead with some of the questions, but that's good. That's a good thing because there's a lot of information. So in terms of the video, just kind of bringing it back to that, I definitely hear a lot of the same things that the students or the young people were talking about in the video. Kids struggling with self-esteem, struggling with self-worth, feeling isolated, particularly in this day and time with this pandemic. You know, everybody's feeling a lot more isolation, or not. You know, some people are feeling overwhelmed because there's too many people around. Talking about depression, talking about feeling suicidal. So all of those are very much on par with what I think we're seeing right now in our own lives, in our own sphere at school. So that kind of.
I think the other thing that's really important is the young lady who spoke about how she became physically ill, sick to her stomach.
Mm-hmm.
And that's that it's not just a mental piece, but also how that mental piece affects me physically. So I appreciated her bringing that out in the video as well.
Right.
That's a good point.
Show up as a headache, a stomach ache. You start feeling aches and pains. You're thinking like you're sick, but you could be emotionally unwell. And so you got to be mindful of that. But again, speaking to someone so you can navigate through those feelings and those emotions. A lot of times that will help. So those kids in that video were spot on and encouraging that they were aware of some of the things that could affect them, the small things that could become big things.
Right. So to your point, let me give you guys a couple of statistics. So in teenagers, the most common mental health disorders are anxiety disorders, including specific phobias and obsessive compulsive disorder. That's about 32%. Depression and mood disorders is about 13%. ADHD, about 9%, and eating disorders, about 3%. So there's some very real issues out here that we are struggling with. And that actually brings us to the second question that I have for the panel, which a lot of you touched on already, but maybe we can expand on it a little bit more. But as you were about growing up as a teen girl yourself, did you or anyone else you knew experience similar feelings? And I think Ms. Berry and Ms. Halstead, you kind of touched on that a little bit. Thomas, I don't know if you want to lead out with that.
Sure. Definitely when I was growing up, I had a lot of those feelings myself, and even starting like earlier than what was represented in the video. Like I can distinctly remember times of being in elementary school and having these moments of, anxiety and just emotional uncertainty and not being able to understand what was happening. And as I got older, because it was happening so much, I kind of just I felt like, oh, it was normal. This is must how everyone must feel. Because if I was feeling this all the time, everybody else has to be feeling it. It wasn't until after I got into college when I finally had to look around and was just like, oh, not everybody thinks this way. It took a while. And so especially now, like working at the elementary level, one of the things, when we were talking about like the physical manifestations of these things, I try to teach our students of like how to listen to their body and listen to what they're feeling and like what does it feel like when I'm characterizing anger, like what does that feel like? You start getting flushed and your heart's racing, these kind of things, helping them learn from early on like how to listen to what they're feeling.
Wow, I think that's a really good point. And so if you think about what I said a little bit earlier, how mental health really is throughout our lives. It's from childhood to adulthood. Even if you guys don't mind me even sharing, when we spoke in our planning process and some of the challenges that we were having as full-grown adults, right? We've been kids, we've been the girls, we've been teenagers, but now we're full-grown adults. And what we want to say to young people, we had some struggles, and we struggled because we're still struggling. We are still having some issues of our own about feeling either isolated or overwhelmed or sometimes sad with all that's going on. So this is really normal. These are things that we're going to be dealing with for the rest of our lives. So our kids going to be, we'll talk more about this a little bit later, but how do we cope? How do we cope? Because what we were feeling back then, some of it we're still feeling, So I really want to encourage young women that, you know what, you're okay. You're okay. Just because we feel like something is really hard today, it's not always going to feel that way.
Yeah.
Okay.
So when I was younger, I'm a social worker because of my experience of when I was younger. Actually, that's the truth. I knew when I was in the 6th grade that I would be a counselor of some sort, because when I was in the 6th grade, 7th grade, I felt like I didn't have a voice. No one heard me. I was almost semi-invisible, besides the mean kids that decided that they would target me for whatever reason, right? And so I felt so much anxiety going to school. I felt so much fear. I felt like no one heard me. The teachers didn't hear me. My parents didn't understand. And there were no counselors. Like, I don't even remember a school counselor, Ms. Halstead, until I got into high school. There were no counselors in elementary school. And in 7th grade, when I needed someone the most, I went into a little shell, and really talked to myself a lot of positive self-talk, and nurturing that I gave to myself. Now, how I created that, I don't know. I think it really came from where I get my joy and calm now, and that's movies. It's so silly, but holiday movies and watching families come together, is how I said, this is what it's supposed to be like Miss Thomas said. You don't know what it's supposed to be like, and then you kind of create this image of what you think. But we're all here because of our experiences as young women. And I want the young girls to understand that they could be encouraged, that even though everything seems really weird now and your voice doesn't really seem like it's being heard, if you persevere towards all of that and kind of go through it, not around it, you actually have to feel the feelings of it, you'll end up in a better place. And like Ms. Jones said, it doesn't mean that you won't have challenges along the way. And even we're having our own challenges with being isolated from each other. But you still have to find a way to, bring yourself out of it. Sometimes it just takes a little resilience and some things you have to do and seek on your own. And, just wanted to reiterate that we're here for them.
I think that that's such an excellent point. A lot of excellent points that you bring up, Ms. Berry, because you know what, we really don't talk enough about that. We don't talk enough about how do we get through it. We point it out, but we don't talk about how we get through it. So hopefully this conversation we can talk a little bit more about that. And a few brought up, and even in the video, some of the warning signs. Sometimes we don't pay attention to the change in the sleeping habits, the loss of interest in activities, the things you used to like to do, you don't want to do them anymore. Major changes in academic performance. I talked to somebody the other day who was a pretty much straight A student and now is really struggling to get some C's and D's. That's a drastic change. Changes in appetite or weight, extreme moodiness, increased isolation. Some isolation, like the way we're working, even just this virtual format, we're very isolated, right? But sometimes we impose isolation on ourselves. We just decide, I don't want to be a part of the world. So that's also a warning sign that, there's some things going on with me that maybe I need to kind of talk about a little bit. And it sounds like everybody has experienced some of that, everybody on this panel, even as a teen. So, and I think Ms. Harper, you mentioned this a little bit earlier. What role do you think that social media has played in intensifying the feelings and emotions of young women today?
Oh, major. It plays, first of all, our children are glued to technology, whether it be their cell phones, and our virtual learning has made it even worse. This is the only way we can teach our children right now. So there's a positive behind our children being so tech savvy that we were able to turn the switch off in building and turn it on a computer and continue our instructional focus. And they moved with it so smoothly from a tech side. But all the other things that come around with isolation and those things made it even worse for our children. Not to mention what it did to our staff. But social media on the other side, because they have so much time now to be on their phones, they're watching. And remember, for the most part, most people only put the positive pieces of their life out there for the world to see. And our children are watching that. Even we do it as adults. You know, we don't always want everyone to see how messed up we can be sometimes. So we give this projection that we're perfect people, and we know we're not. And our children are watching that. And so they try to emulate that. And when they do, and they fall short, then it takes on a whole different view within them, where our children experience different type of emotions through that. If the child is heavy and all their friends are small and they're wearing the crop tops and they're looking so beautiful, then our kids look at that and say, well, I want to wear that. And then as a parent, you say, wait a minute, just because they make it in your size doesn't mean you can wear it. And even that comment to a kid, although our intent is from a good place, the what the child receives makes it even worse, because you're telling me that I don't measure up. And so it really causes our kids to think that life is supposed to be perfect, and they don't understand that life is not perfect for anyone.
That's a really, really good point. It's Tom that you were going to say.
Yeah, just based on what Ms. Hall said about like social media kind of being like the highlight reels of like someone's life. Like I've asked my students many a times, I'm just like, oh, like when's the last time you put up a selfie? And like, you know, some of them will show me and all of that. And then I'm just like, okay, how many pictures did you have to take before you found that selfie? And all of them will tell you, I took a lot to get this good one. And it's and that's
the filters. Let's talk about the filters.
What a filter. I don't want to take those. I'll tell you that.
Well, you know, in the video, the girl said that she filters hers in black and white because she doesn't want the color to pop out. She wants to be a part of the crowd to participate in social media and put the picture up, but she feels vulnerable and insecure, so she makes it black and white. Like, you know, right.
She said it could all be the same.
Yeah. So everything could just kind of be flat, you know. And Ms. Thomas is right. You know, I've experienced this, taking 100 pictures with my daughter, and I'm looking at her and I'm like, you don't have to do this. And in her mind, she's like, are you crazy? Yes, I do.
Like, I need the perfect picture.
You don't have to. And everything you're like, that was a long time ago when you didn't have to, but now you have to. And so I want the students, the young ladies, to know that we've all experienced it, even in our own way. We take pictures. I have pictures, some in my photo album, the old-fashioned type, and I literally want to take them out of the album. Like, what were, and who pays it?
What were we thinking?
So I get it. Like, you know, I think the takeaway from that part of it is that although we didn't experience social media at a young age like they are, we still understand the pressures of being a female in America.
Yes.
That's going to change.
Yes. And I think that we would have been much worse off.
Yeah.
We would have been much worse off with social media. Like, sacrifice. I'm insecure enough at times without having social media. So I didn't need that growing up. And Ms. Thomas, you're absolutely right. People forget we control our own narrative on social media. I only show you what I want you to see.
Right. Yeah.
So, that is a major point. And, just speaking of some statistics, social media statistics hurts girls more than it hurts boys. Shows that girls are more likely to check social media and more likely to be in psychological distress as a result. They're more likely to be exposed to cyberbullying. They're more likely to lose sleep and not exercise. It's more linked to social isolation and depression. So all of these things come about because of social media. And I find it interesting when we talk about it because it's like, okay, well, we didn't have it and we still had issues growing up. So adding that is it can be moderation because it's not all bad. Turn it off at night, go to sleep. Recognize everybody not your friend. Keep it in perspective. So, but let's put some thought into how we're using it. All right.
I very much tell my students and like the times that we've had this conversation, I tell them to, you know what, your social media should be the representation of like who you are, like the things that make you happy. So,
the real
reading
you.
or going out or music or whatever. Like I always tell them that like that's who you really are. Like you are not just the sum of your physical features or
Right.
like certain points, because I also tell them like, listen, society is like, it's just a guideline. It doesn't mean that like you have to follow everything in that path. And I think for a lot of them, they get caught up in those things, especially for our younger crowd, because it like they'll see like famous YouTubers or influencers or things like that, and they're just like, oh my God, they were doing that at 13. What am I doing at 13? It's like, you're a teenager. It's okay. Enjoy it. Like enjoy this process of like getting to know yourself and move with it. Like you don't have to live anything on anyone else's time.
And speaking of that, I think we would be remiss if we don't talk about the fact that that whole happy, I'm going to show the happy side of me and all the great things, but I'm going to have a fence on the side so you can see all the ugly stuff about me.
Right.
How about that? That mentality to me, it blows my mind. Like I get it, but I don't know that that's very healthy, because if I have to have a whole separate page for my friends so that I could really speak my mind, I don't know. I would have to question it. I question it. So I think this is a good conversation. So it kind of is a great segue into the next question. What are some of the barriers that prevent us from having more conversations like this? Because this is real talk. Like, but you don't always hear people talk about it. Why not?
I think the main thing is families, the stigmatization when you're family, like, oh, who are you talking to? Why are you talking to them? Because like I said, I didn't learn no counselors when I was growing up. However, I do remember hearing, family members saying, what's said in this house stays in this house. You don't share anything outside of the house. And now they want to encourage kids to speak outside of the house. So again, like Ms. Thomas said earlier, they're kind of going against their family. What's normal for them to come out and speak about how they're feeling. If a kid, I'm sure a kid's going to identify with what I'm getting ready to say. If they say to their family members like, oh, I'm just feeling so sad today. And the family member, the first response is going to say, why are you feeling sad? You got a roof over your head, you got clothes on your back, you got food in your belly. But that has nothing to do with my emotional heart, and my sadness that I'm feeling. Yes, I'm glad I have all those things, but there's something deeper inside me that's not able to lift myself up from the sadness, And so I think that family, being able to express how you feel within your family can be difficult, but I want them to be encouraged to do it anyway.
Good point.
But I also think it goes back to that social norm that we now have in terms of we must be perfect. See, if I show someone that I'm not, or I admit that I'm not, or I go to speak to someone because I'm not, then I'm breaking that social norm. So if I'm in school and I'm feeling depressed, I might not want anyone to know that I need to go to Miss Jones and talk about this, because then there's something wrong with me. And I don't want anybody to think there's anything wrong with me. And so, how do we, Ms. Jones, I put this back on you. How do we overcome that stigma?
Yeah, that's a hard one. I know for me personally, I try to keep an open door, and I make it clear to students, you know what, I don't want to just see you when you're feeling bad. I want to see all parts of you. Come tell me about the good news. Tell me when you won the game or when you went here and you did this. Like, because I want to be able to laugh and smile with you, but I also want to be able to support you and pick you up because I keep signs around me that there's nothing that I don't talk about. We have to be open to it. We have to try to remove the stigma by doing things like we're doing now, by normalizing. I share so much of me, I probably overshare. Any student that talks to me, they're probably like, oh my God, like I know. But I need you to know, like I wake up some days and I'm like, I don't really want to talk today. I'm not good today. I'm not always good. So I think in answer to your question, just normalizing things and letting you know that, you know what, it's okay. Whatever you bring is okay. Because we all bring something. And some days you gotta lift me up, Miss Halstead, and some days I gotta lift you up, Miss Berry and Miss Thomas. Like it's about who's my tribe, who's lifting me up, and who am I lifting up? Because it's really a challenge. So I think the barriers in the community, Miss Berry, you brought that up very well. The stigma, the fear of being unaccepted, of being different. Not understanding that everything is treatable and help is available. And also access, finding providers. Like sometimes people want help, but they don't know where to go. So of this video, I'm going to make sure that we have resources for people that you need to know. Like even online, there's some things that you can do virtually. And I think that, we love as a people, we love to look to celebrities. Everybody's looking for the next one, right? So I had to do a little bit of research, like who's out here talking about their mental health issues. So I have a small list. So Janet Jackson has issues that she talks about body image and depression. J-Lo.
And a lot of her songs is represented.
Say that again?
A lot of her songs, she talks about sadness and overcoming anxiety and depression. Yeah.
And J-Lo, anxiety. Jennifer Lewis, the mom on Blackish, the grandmother, she has bipolar disorder. She's bipolar. Selena Gomez, bipolar disorder. Jada Pinkett Smith, she was suicidal at one point. She suffers with depression. Taraji Henson, she suffers from depression. One of the reasons that I have is actually a link to a mental health foundation that she started in her father's name because of the family, the genetic component, which is something else that we don't really talk about. A lot of we inherit it. So there's a family component of depression that she has. Camila Mendez, the young lady, I don't know if anybody watches Riverdale, but she's on Riverdale. She had bulimia. Michelle Williams, Destiny Child, severe depression. Mariah Carey, bipolar. Jessica Alba, obsessive compulsive disorder. So the list goes on and on and on. So we know and be more willing to talk about it so we can normalize this. Like we are all humans out here trying to find our way. I don't know if that makes sense, but the more willingness that we have to kind of be bare, right, and allow ourselves, our real selves to be seen, allow our fences to be our real self, right? That's the more the more we can help this to not be a barrier in the community.
Yeah, I think that when you do explore who you are and really make that journey to find your true self, you move through this world in a different way. So I always tell the girls in my group, like, you're in this group because I'm trying to teach you how to move through this world in a different way. It makes no sense to them at first, but once they start understanding exactly where the concept comes from, because when you move through this world in your own true self, you're not really bothered by the things that other people are saying. You really don't worry about the YouTubers and the influencers, because every move you make is an influence on somebody. Right? You may not even know that you're influencing that person, but the way you move with confidence and through this world, and of course they're the future. So the way they move through this world with confidence and not be bothered with the white noise is what I call it. They're influencing people every day and may not even realize it. And that's really the joy of it all, because all of us are support people for young people, put it that way. And we influence them in a way sometimes that we don't even know until they become adults and they come back and say, oh, wow, I remember when you said this, or you actually did this, or I saw you doing this. So I want young people to know that younger people are always watching and they're mimicking themselves after that person, no matter what it is that they do. So if they show up their best self every day, then they're influencing people and they may not even be doing it on social media.
So, and Ms. Berry, I would just kind of challenge just a little bit because I'm from the school of fake it till you make it. Because sometimes we don't feel it. You know,
Right.
sometimes we don't feel it. Like I told you, sometimes I come in, I'm like, listen, I'm not for it. You know, and I'll have a student say to me, "Oh, what can I do for you? Like, do you want to talk?" Because that's every day I'm not on my A game. So I need to respect that every day you are not on your A game. So it is hard to pour from an empty cup. Like if I'm not taking care of myself and I'm not feeling good, it's hard for me to really manage myself and have somebody else watching me. I don't really want you watching me that day because it's not my best day. So I need to speak up for the folks who sometimes it's not their best day. So what do? You show up anyway.
Yeah, I mean, I think showing up is your best at that moment. Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying 100%. Like I'm never at 100. You know, I don't know if I'm ever at 100. Like I try my best to get there. But of course you fall short every now and then. We all do. So yeah, when I say your best self, it's your best self for that moment.
Oh, okay. For that day.
Yeah, it's not 100. I want everybody to understand it's your best self for that moment. So like I talk to myself a lot because I learned how to do that when I was younger and no one was hearing me. So if you're that type of person like I was, who adults just weren't listening, they weren't mean, they just were doing their own thing. And I was a child who just didn't have a voice. So I spoke out loud to myself a lot. So now I make a joke of it with my adult friends. And I said, I'm speaking to the universe because someone's going to listen to me. So I speak out loud to the universe all the time. And my adult friends laugh at me now, but guess what? Guess what they're doing? They're speaking to the universe. So it's not my best self all the time, but even in my worst, I just speak out loud and somehow I influence other people to do the same. So if you work your way every day and try to get somebody to kind of follow you or support you or love you, then you're ahead of the game. I think.
I agree.
I think also with all of this, like from what I'm hearing from you, Michelle, and you, Miss Berry, I think one of the things that it took me a while to even learn it from myself and for me to even figure out a way of like pushing it out to like the student and the people that I work with is also seeing that vulnerability is not a weakness. It's actually a strength. Being able to identify what like your weak spots are or the like the spots of yourself that you don't understand actually strengthens you as a person, and being able to articulate that to someone else is helping you grow as a person. I know for me, my own, like, I'm very concerned about, like, being competent and making sure that I'm giving, the best of myself that I can on a daily basis. And one of my vulnerabilities is that, am I consistently doing that? But now I feel comfortable in saying that, you know what? Maybe I don't always have it together. Maybe I don't know all the answers. But that doesn't say anything about me as a person, just saying that, hey, I'm open and willing to learn on how to be better than I can be, And it's just being able to acknowledge that, like, it's not always going to be always rainbows and sunshine. Sometimes we got pretty stormy days out there. And that's okay. It's just like, it's kind of like clouds passing through on a sunny day. Like you're the sun, you're the sunny day, and sometimes we have these dark moments, but they go away and we figure it out.
Right.
And I'm so glad you said that, Ms. Thomas, because doesn't the rainy days allow us to really appreciate the bright sunny ones?
Yes, they do. Mm-hmm.
And I
I
think
know
that's
for me,
how we
definitely.
have to look at our bad days. We will have bad days. Nobody ever promised us, perfect days every day of our life. We were never promised that. But I think when we do go through it and we get to the other side, there's always something there bright and shiny waiting for us.
Right.
And I think we have to encourage our young ladies to say that things may not be perfect today, but tomorrow is a new day, and we wake up and we try to make tomorrow better than the day it was, before. Like Ms. Berry said early on in this conversation, all of us, the four of us, we're here where we are today because of experiences that we experienced as children and as teenagers. And there's a purpose behind what we do. But there's a purpose behind what we do because of working through what we had to work through to get to where we are. And so we live in the present, but we have to look forward to our future.
I'm so glad you say that, Ms. Halstead, because, in keeping with this whole topic, Ms. Thomas, you also made a good point. All of you are making really good points. And you know what? We have bad days, right? Some people stay in bad days. And that's when we go to the warning signs of when you stay in a bad day. Because there is always a tomorrow. I'm always telling students, if anybody knows me, they know this is my story, right? When we start talking about, oh, I can't make it, I don't think I could do this, I don't want to live, I tell them that, my grandmother lived to be 99. Both of my grandmothers.
Wow.
Right? So if I'm 17, right, I know a lot. And I always put my hands up. I'm like, I know a lot because I'm 17. I got so much knowledge, right? But my grandmother lived to be 99, like she's all the way over here. So imagine how much life, right? Yeah. If she came up over here, how much life you would have missed out on over here. It was never perfect, but you have to give yourself an opportunity to make it. So that's always my go-to. I know they're like, oh my God, let's don't hear you about it. But I have to say
analogy because it's
so many times it's like I just want to give up. And if you give up, you're gonna miss out on what's next. What's next not today seem like it's gonna be great. And it may not be rainbows and sunshine, but it may be doable. You may be able to just manage it with your tribe. And I think that's actually giving us the segue perfectly into our last question. Like, how did we, right? How did we and how do we currently cope? And based on our own coping, and I think we shared a lot of those lessons, what can we share? Because we got to do this thing every day. We got to wake up and we got to be like, all right, I don't feel so great. Or some days you wake up and you feel like Superwoman. But how did we cope back then, right, growing up? And how do we cope now? And what can we tell our audience of young people, young women about that?
Something that works for me, and by me talking to like our students and things like that, positive affirmations are wonderful because when we're in the midst of like those dark days, of those down times, we feel like we can't do anything. Like we feel like we're not adequate or any of these things. I actually have an app on my phone that I have it like you can set up to certain like scheduled times and it will push positive affirmations to me throughout the day. And it's something just as a reminder, just like if I open it now, it'll say something like, I am confident, I am in a safe space, like I am loved, I am cared for. Like these things are just like these little reminders.
What's that?
It's called the I Am app, I believe. I will tell you, right? It is amazing. Because at first, I'm not gonna lie, I thought positive affirmations were like, okay, this is kind of weird. Like I gotta talk to myself, like I gotta talk positively to myself. But it is really something, and it's something that I actually do on the daily. I actually have 2 Post-its in my home. Like one is yellow for the morning and one is blue for the evening. So before, like, because that's the first place I go to in the morning. I look at it and I say my affirmation to myself of like, I'm gonna do the best that I can do today. And at night before I go to bed, I read the blue one, and it's just like I did the best that I could do for the day. And it sounds silly, I know. But it has really done wonders because especially in the midst of my bad time, I'll catch myself on like a mirrored surface and the affirmation will pop to my head. So definitely trying to have a more positive mindset, which is not easy, but it's making the effort to try and turn that negativity around.
Okay. Nice.
I mean, I would say, Thomas, that positive self-talk is definitely what I do. And I didn't realize what it was when I was a kid. I just thought that I was talking to a friend myself. But now I definitely try to use positive self-talk, or if I have a thought in my mind, in my space, I say it out loud. I welcome an answer. Sometimes you have to sit still though, to receive it. And that's difficult for me at times. But I really, every day, I work on just trying to uplift myself, because it's a chore every day. It's something you have to think about. I don't want people to think that it's easy to say positive things about yourself, because it's not. If you have been, in a system that seems weird, it's going to take some time. So I appreciate Ms. Thomas for even mentioning the app, because that sounds great. Um, but I too do talk to myself and try to give myself positive affirmations or positive directives as to how I'm going to move in the world today, because I always want to move with intention of being kind and empathetic to other people. So I'm constantly working on expressing myself in an empathetic and kind way, so that it could feed someone else, and then they could feed someone else. So I do talk to myself a lot. So I would agree with Ms. Thomas, definitely the positive talk.
So I think people do a lot of different things um, to help them cope. And I'm listening to Ms. Thomas, and I'm thinking, and I'm listening to Ms. Berry, and how you have a quiet moment where you're speaking to yourself. But for some of us, it's not necessarily a situation where we're speaking to ourselves. Um, for me, I mean, to be very honest, I spend my day, I wake up in the morning and I have a quiet moment, but it's not necessarily with myself. I spend time in prayer, and I meditate. Um, and that's what brings me to the point of understanding where my hope comes from. And that's how I encourage myself, how I find encouragement, um, and how I motivate myself to come out of some dark places that we find ourselves sometimes. And and music always, um, different types of music. Um, if I need something upbeat, then I may switch on some hip hop, or if I need something to encourage me, I might switch on some gospel. If I'm feeling a little bluesy or down, I might put on some blues or some country music, or jazz. Like last night I was in a different kind of vibe, so I was listening to a little bit of Kim and Rachel Farrell. So music can help you a lot.
Yeah.
And so those are the things that I do. It's not necessarily speaking to me, but speaking to the hope that I find and I know that will always be a part of my life. And from when I was a little kid all the way up to now being an old woman.
I think that, and I do a little bit of all of what you were saying. I find affirmations hard. That's why I took the app now, because I need to work on that. I would love to do that. I do keep a lot of things around me, but I need to learn how to talk to myself a little bit more, Miss Barry. I do. So I find that finding your tribe. I said that earlier, but I think that it's important that you find those who support you and that can be honest with you, and that becomes your tribe. I'm always telling students, my people, that you know what, we're not always born to the family that appreciates us or that we want to be with. So sometimes we have to create our own family, and sometimes that person may not even exist in your own cipher. You may have to find that person. So another thing that I say frequently, because it's so true, Michelle Obama is my friend. She does not know that, but she is my friend. She is my friend in my head, and we speak often. She her style, her grace, her dignity. I love it. So to me, and I've created that. And I think that you got to find people to be honest with, and they can be honest with you. Be kind to yourself. Protect your peace. That was the other piece of our title. You got to do everything you can to protect your peace. If you're negative, you can't come in my house. Like you just can't. I already know your spirit, you can't come. So I gotta protect my peace. Don't let people drain your energy. Those energy drainers, we know them. Run from
Yep.
them because they'll take all of it. Find a quiet space, even a corner. You know, some of us don't have quiet home. I get that. Find a corner. Walk.
That-
Find a space. Close your eyes. Take a deep breath. And then I'm gonna be all the way honest. Therapy. Therapy. I go to therapy every week. I love it. It saves my life. Has saved my life probably since I was a teen. When you know, in my house I had a stepfather, and you know I didn't really like that. So you know my mother considered me to be the person in the house that was disturbing the peace. So I got therapy. But it did expose me, and I thank her for that because it did expose me to the notion of speaking to someone to help you when you need help, when you want to talk. So I'm a great believer in therapy and the power of talking things through. So just in terms of some other things that people might talk about, you know, finding trusted family, friends, a supportive adult. You know, again, that person may not be in your house. It may be your teacher. It may be one of us sitting here. Be mindful and be realistic of what your needs are. Do healthy things that make you feel good. So,
You know what, Ms. Jones, can I add
yes, ma'am.
the laughter, right? Laughing, people don't understand how important laughing is. And I'm not talking about like a little chuckle. I'm talking about laughing so hard that your stomach is almost hurting. And that came to my mind when you said like the people around you. I try to tell my own kids, like, if you have a circle of friends or people who you hang with, if you're not getting that joy and laughter from them, if they're not bringing the positive, they got to go the opposite way, right? Because laughter, it heals. It actually heals. You could be feeling so down and you can get around a group of people and they will make you laugh and you almost forgot, like, what was I sad about? You know, when I had group last week, the little girl, one of the young ladies said, I said, you know, like, you know, what makes you smile? Like, what makes you feel good? And she said, my friends, they make me laugh so much. I call them all the time because we were talking about this whole pandemic thing. So when you said that, it brought to my mind, like, I was on the phone with a coworker and I was laughing so hard about something that somebody was doing in my house. And they said, I want to come to your house. I was like, it's a pandemic. You can't come to my house. You know?
Right.
But we were laughing about that, you know. So I want kids to understand, like, don't take things so serious. Like, if we are promised tomorrow, like Ms. Halstead said, then we have an opportunity to make ourselves happy tomorrow. But if you don't wait for tomorrow, you won't make it to 99, like Ms. Jones's grandmother who lived a great life. So there's so much possibility, and laughing and smiling will help you get along the way. And I also want to share too that I also have been to therapy. So I want the kids to understand that even the social workers need a social worker or a counselor, because we get into these moments of time and space, especially like if you lost someone very close to you or some change has happened in your life that's so drastic and you can't really figure it out. Counseling is okay. And now we have virtual counseling. They have apps for counseling. There's an app called Joyable. That's you know, it's an anxiety app, and every week the counselor calls you and check on how you made it through the week. You know, so I want kids to understand there's so many things out there, and Jones is going to share those things with you because we want you to take charge of your own mental health.
Good point. Very good point. And I think Ms. Thomas said earlier, too, speaking up. Speaking up is a sign of strength. So get help when you need help. Know when you need help. Challenge your negative thinking. That's the last point that I personally want to make. We can have so many negative thoughts into our head. You know, I'm this, I'm the worst at that. And challenge it. You have to challenge that. You know, sometimes, you know, we got to do some self-talk. We do have to talk to ourselves and say, you know what, that's not true. Like, get out of here. That's not true. We have to challenge our own negative thinking. Because you know what, we got to do this thing called life. We got to do it together. And are there real mental health things? For sure. Anxiety is real. Depression is real. OCD is real. But guess what? There's real treatment for that. And there's real help you can get. And there's a lot of folks out there who maybe because of their family barriers and the family belief system, they don't feel that they can get help. So just know, we're here. You can give us a call. I'll call a parent in a minute. I'll have that conversation. I'll find a way to
Same.
make you get the help that you need. So it's funny, the bell is ringing now, and that's kind of clear to me that we've actually gone for our hour. I don't know, ladies. I don't think that we thought we could go ahead and do this. I didn't know that we knew we had so much to say, but we actually do.
I think we needed it actually, because I actually feel better. Like, even though we were having our feelings, kids want students to understand we're real people who have real situations. The pandemic is real, and the holidays are coming up, and things are going to be different. But they're going to be different. They don't have to stop. You can still have a loving, thankful time and show empathy and gratitude without actually being in the same space, because that's exactly what we're going to do. Gratitude is something you give to people. It has nothing to do with the food, right? So we want to definitely express our gratitude for all of you who are going to be taking a part of this workshop. So just know that we're here whenever you need us.
And
well said.
Different doesn't have to be bad.
Right.
Different doesn't mean bad, and just keep that in mind. Different is just different.
It's just different. It's just
you took the words right out of my mouth, Miss Halstead, because I was gonna say that. I was just like, this is, I know that we're getting tired of hearing that, it's the new normal and everything, but it really is. And the best that we can do is just kind of go with it, and we challenge a lot of our own behaviors and thoughts with, like, a little bit more positivity. Like, if you're feeling negative about something, you start thinking to yourself, like, well, who told me that? Like, where did that come from? That's a thing that I do to myself when I find myself getting caught in a downward spiral. I'm just like, where am I getting this from? Like, and so a lot of times that helps, just going like, oh, where am I getting this from? Just that alone can turn it around.
And what's the source? Because sometimes you got to figure out what's the source. Sometimes we get it from ourselves. Sometimes we get it from other people, and we got to question the source.
Absolutely.
So,
And the intent.
Right, and the incident. So ladies, this was wonderful. I'm glad we had this opportunity. I will make sure that we put up the resources that we talked about in addition to the ones I had already available. And I'm also going to make sure that we have our contact information. So if anyone is doing this and wants to get in contact with any of us, that they have the ability to do so, because our goal is to make sure that we all support one another. And we are here to support all of our young ladies and all of our gentlemen as well. This particular focus today was on our young ladies and being kind to your mind. So I thank you, and I thank you.